Hey guys, I'm Captain Foley, and this is Trekyards. Welcome back.
Hi guys, I'm Connor Cookins too. And we have a guest, Michael Westmore.
We do. We have an awesome guest. As Commander just said, Michael Westmore is joining us today to talk about alien makeups.
I'm excited. So if you don't know the name, you should watch our announcement video. He's done apparently everything. So we're going to talk about everything, but we have to be very careful because there's so much. So Stuart, we've got a specific topic today. What are we going to talk about? And Michael, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, well, first of all, welcome back to the show, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you, as always.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about, let's say, one of my favorite baddies in Star Trek are the Cardassians. So let's talk about designing the Cardassian makeup and that whole process and see where that goes. How's that? Sound good, guys?
Good.
It is fair to say they're one of the races that sort of developed into such a just like the Ferengi, it became a sort of an everyday race. They were fleshed out both in culture, in technology, and the makeup was not so much severe, but fully fleshed out, it certainly felt like. So, very good race to start with, I think.
Well, once we hit Deep Space Nine, we were in Cardassian hell. So we only had a couple of them, in Next Generation. Mark Alimo was the first one.
Yep.
And Mark had a very unique, I want to say, facial features, including his neck. But the design started with, at the time we lived in Studio City, California, and there was a Thai restaurant near us where we liked going. And there was an art store next door that had a huge painting in the window. And it was a painting of a woman with a spoon in the middle of her forehead. And I said to Marion, I said, someday I'm going to find a use to make an alien with a spoon in the middle of their forehead. And the Cardassians was absolutely perfect. It became their character. In fact, then when we wound up with women, we had to do something different. That's why we painted blue inside the spoon.
Mm-hmm.
But
like makeup, yeah.
Yeah. Mark had a very long neck. So when I got to designing, and again, these were supposedly cold people. So I used a lizard as in my inspiration for it. Hence the way the nose came down. There was an upper lip. There was a little chin piece coming out of the ear here, down the jawline. There was a lizard-like thing. Didn't fool with the hands because they were going to wear gloves a lot. But again, they were scaly and they were gray, so they were cold-blooded and going to be nasty. And so slicking the hair back real tight to the head, so it made it smooth. It was just an interesting look. But then, in looking at Mark's sculpture, because I had taken the cast of him down, and instead of just a head, which I had only done a head, that probably wasn't the end of it. But since I took this body cast of him down to mid-chest, his neck was so long it screamed out for something different, which was great because the shoulders were added. And that was another unique part. And when you saw the Cardassian from the back, my idea for that was kind of like a king cobra type of a flare across them, except again it had scales on it. So it was an interesting sculpture to do. And then it worked fine for TNG, but all of a sudden on the pilot episode for Deep Space Nine, there was either 12 or 14 of them that started off right away. And you could only make one set of pieces a day because I only had one set of molds. And the foam rubber had to be poured and baked and cooked and pulled out. So I had to start literally sculpting and designing more of them. So eventually I had several sets of, and because with this character, one size didn't fit all. So I had to have different sizes. And then they came in with children. And then they came in with, women and everything. And it was like, oh my gosh. There was one of the episodes on Deep Space Nine, Mary Crosby and Armin Shimmerman had a love scene together. And to me, it's one of the greatest little pieces that were ever done on the shows, was their relationship. Here's this Ferengi with this big butt head, And Mary, in fact, we even, because her chest was exposed, Bob Blackman designed a dress that was lower, so we had to build a chest piece for her, a scaly chest piece. And this scene, strip all their makeup off. This scene would have been brilliant as two human beings. But to see this fantasy, it's like it's a moment that I've never forgotten.
I got to jump in real quick. Were you responsible for any wardrobing on the Cardassians as well? Because we know that their wardrobe changed substantially from TNG to the final Deep Space Nine look.
Yeah, no, Bob Blackman was in charge of that. But Bob Blackman, as opposed to like me saying this is my design and you've got to fix it, or vice versa. Bob and I would talk every day, and he'd tell me what he wanted to do and what my objective was, and I would work it out. It's like when he said, well, he wanted to lower the neckline on Mary Crosby and on any female Cardassian. Fine, we made a chest, as opposed to saying no, we're not going to do it or we can't do it. It was all workable. We could do it. It just takes time.
What was the discussion around the original Cardassian headpiece that kind of? I don't know if you remember that. They kind of had a covered head. Yeah. It looked very similar to the bad guys from the last Starfighter, actually. It was kind of reminiscent of that. I don't know if you remember because the first time we saw the Cardassians, I believe they had a headgear on.
With us.
The thing is, Bob would fit it. It wasn't a problem because the makeups were all very close to the face. And by slicking the hair back, we actually made room for, but I mean that wasn't, the hair wasn't slicked back because of that. That was a decision on my part as far as our character goes. But Bob would, he knew what I was doing too. So I'm saying we worked close together the entire time. We're still good friends today.
Well, I want to jump back to the beginning, and we touched on this in the previous announcement, but a new race appears in TNG that happens all the time, but I think the point of bringing them in was to lead them into DS9 and such. So what was the sort of the scripting? What was the behind the scenes? Did they give you any indication of what they might want, what they could want, if it was going to be a feature baddie? I mean, surely some discussion was had, and did any of that filter down to you and actually add to the process?
There was no discussion. I would get the script, and it would say, we're going to land on this planet, and they're going to be bad guys. And then it was up to me. I mean, when you read, I would have to pull the script out to see how it read. But they were kind of like sleazy, nasty people. Since there was only kind of like Mark to begin with, I could go crazy with the makeup and the timing to make them up. Now, if they'd started off and given me 12 of them, Cardassians would not look like they looked. Then it was just that we had to follow through at that point because it had been created.
One thing that certainly screams out about the Cardassian designs, there is so many pieces. It isn't just a forehead of the week. It isn't, I mean, not just, but it's a full ensemble. And I'm looking at the initial version, which has a much more subdued neck, which I'm sure I'll mention in a minute. I mean, all these pieces, they're so integrated. I mean, are they? I assume they're all just bits of rubber that you stick on and then you mask to the skin tone. How what sort of process is that when it's that much more drastic and
it just takes time. It just takes time to do. Usually they would start with a forehead. The makeup artist would glue down the forehead. Once that went down, the thing was we finally had to do different noses because everybody's nose isn't the same length. So we had a variety of a long, medium, and a shorter nose. Pick out a nose that fit. The other little lip piece that came in here was actually attached to the nose to make sure it would wrap into the upper lip. Then there was a little chin piece that filled across there. And there was, again, different sizes of them. Ears, not so much, because it didn't matter if the ear finished a little shorter or went a little longer. Eventually, we had a few more just because we had to make so many pieces up. But as I said, the sculptures may have differed a little teeny bit, but the main essence of the character never changed. Because even the shoulders were segmented as they came down to the tip of the. What you did find is that the pieces fit on people differently. So it might look different, but they really aren't. It's just the way they fit. I remember one time, because I always told them that, what we need for Cardassians are people with long necks. Well, somewhere they hired a guy whose head was stuck right on his shoulders like this, and it literally went from his up here behind his ear, kaboom, like that. It just, as opposed to a long slope, it was,
Mm-hmm. No,
so that's what dictated it.
On average, let's just say for Ducat, how long would his makeup take to apply and then remove?
And I will. Was that different from the pilot or his first early appearance, and then?
No, it took about 3 hours. After you do them for a few days, you might knock off 20 minutes or so. You might get it down to 2.5. If you could pre-paint the pieces, it would be shorter. And sometimes in later Aliens that we did, Enterprise, Voyager, some of the larger things like the Zindies, it took an entire day to paint them. So once they were all pre-painted, maybe it might take 1.5, 2 hours to get them into their makeups, because you had to glue it down around their eyes and around their mouth, and then fill in with a paint so it all blended together. But so many of the makeups were 2 to 3 hours, except for humanoids, where maybe just a little nose piece or a cheek piece or something like that. Pack lids didn't take that long. It was kind of like a forehead with eyebrows. And so.
Well, considering, the other prime example is Klingons, it's quite a hefty main piece and then hair. What was more time consuming and difficult? Multiple smaller pieces or a bigger piece but taking more of the face?
Well, a bigger piece, if it could be pre-painted, went very quick. If you had to take and glue it on in its raw state and then have to paint it, of course that adds time to it. But a little nose piece was almost just as delicate. I mean, like a Bajoran nose. You had to really be careful, because a Bajoran, I say you could do that in maybe like 45 minutes, maybe less. Some makeup artists that I had working for me for a long time, and the nose, and you had to have great edges on it. I mean, the edges of the rubber had to be so thin, because we're doing this pre-silicone. If we were using silicone, today most of the things are made out of silicone, and the edges are finite and disappear. But with the rubber, if the edge wasn't the greatest, you had to work with it to be able to blend it out into the skin, so it was invisible. So when it got down to nose people, humanoids, or a little forehead or something, we tried to get them in and out in about an hour, because they had so many of them. Bob would have so many of them to have to dress, and hairdressing would, whoever our head hair stylist was at the time, would have to run them all through hairdressing to do something different with their hair. So we had great teams that worked together on them.
Speaking of teams, I was just going to ask, how many people did you have assisting you, like working under you, or were you a supervisor? Were you more hands-on? How did all that work?
I was hands-on up until Paul Winfield, when he played Darmok in Next Generation.
Wow.
But it took me 3 hours to do him, which meant I had no time to go around and see what everybody else was doing. So I finally, my application time got down to doing like Janeway and Chakotay and Terry Farrell, Brent Spiner, because I got Brent's makeup down. I could do him an hour, and then I'd still have time to get around to other people. But they finally basically didn't want me to be doing any lengthy type makeups, because there's always so much more going on that I really had to supervise.
In an earlier conversation with you, you had mentioned that you didn't apply anything to anybody that you hadn't tried on yourself first. Is that true? Like,
well, no, I wouldn't do it absolutely every time.
Yeah.
I actually went through and had things applied and had them removed. Not every single one of them over the years. We were talking about 600 and some shows, and there'd be a lot of stuff. But no, I knew what it felt like to go on and go off, because when people would complain about things, I could either commiserate with them or they were full of BS.
So back to the Cardassians for a second. in the first iteration we see having facial hair, from the sort of
The Klingons?
no, the Cardassians, the
Cardassians.
sort of strange, just
that was in the very beginning.
That was the very first. So
that's Mark Alime was in the very beginning, and why we changed that, it saves some time. And it's like, we've got the Klingons, and if we're going to meet up, everybody's going to be walking around with beards and mustaches. So they just decided to kind of like, we'll clean these guys up. They didn't have eyebrows, so why are they going to have beards and mustaches and things? So it just disappeared very quickly.
It's a race without facial hair.
Yeah, well, that's what was nice about the show, too, was that in bringing characters back, we'd have the opportunity to tweak them. If something really didn't work and you hated, you had a chance to go back and redo it. Like that, like doing away with the facial hair on them.
So these were, the makeup you made was a long time ago, in a different era of filmmaking. Everything was big film cameras released in standard definition. Then the Blu-rays came out. You got to see everything pop. And one of the great comments is that the makeup really holds up. Worf, you can't see the seams, and that really is a testament to your quality. You're obviously a true professional in this, and I'm not asking to be insulting or anything. I'm just truly curious because I was not there.
Yeah.
On set, putting all this stuff on, were you aiming to mask every seam to make it completely? If you stood next to this actor in this makeup, he looked 100% alien. There was nothing residual. There's no anything. Obviously, not every alien because there's some background people, but the primary characters. Was this about making a complete experience for the actors, both in and out of makeup? Was there anything even to be seen on the Blu-ray, or was it literally you were aiming for that level of professional movie quality, I guess, for that sort of TV budget?
I actually aimed from day one, because I came from doing movies. I mean, I was going back to television, from traveling the world with Stallone and De Niro, and everything had to be seamless then. And I insisted on all our makeups for Star Trek. In fact, at one point, when we started to do our first movie, Paramount told me to, I guess, I was going to get rid of my television crew and hire a feature crew. And I said, we have one of the greatest makeup crews going, and they all are really good artists. And I mean, I had people that would I had a normal crew, but for extra people I would bring in would be Emmy and Oscar winners that were in between shows. So it's just that the work that was done was expected. I want to say be motion picture quality. And even a television, it should be motion picture quality. It means just being sloppy and not being sloppy, paying attention to detail, getting those edges down, getting them painted so it all blends in together. And it's not that hard to do if you just pay attention and you do it. So I took my television crews with me every time we did a movie.
I got to jump in about the neck ridges. They seem to get a little bit more larger and pronounced for Deep Space Nine as opposed to the original concept. Can you just talk us through that decision, maybe?
Well, the thing is, some of the would have been exactly the same because we were using Mark Alimo's molds to create them with. When they were resculpted, a lot of times they were. It's just to give a variety to the culture, not to make a big change. It's like the Klingon foreheads. They still had their beards, they had their hair, their wigs, and things like that. The bumps on the foreheads changed to give us a variety and a different character. And so that would be the reason for the anything you noticed in the Cardassians, not a revamp or anything, but just, and there were some of the, like the little things on the shoulder here, the little spiny, not spines, but the segments on the shoulders might have been a little wider, might have been a little thicker, but it wasn't to change the design at all, just a variety to the culture. It was a fun character to do. As I said, and Mark Alimo set the bar for how Cardassians were to be. And we went from this one Cardassian to being able to make a whole group of them. The same with the Klingons, where we would go from our original Michael Dorn to having 25 or 30 Klingons in an episode.
Well, you just brought up a question that I just thought of. You deciding to add the neck piece. I mean, how do you feel as an artist suddenly looking at the Cardassian spaceship has a sort of a neck? You look at the DS9 with the pylons, it has that neck. Rick Sternberg took those inspirations. Their buildings on Cardassia Prime. I mean, you, Mr. Westmore, making those decisions built into their culture.
But I see it. Well, I didn't see any of that either. That was all done after we filmed. That was all done by the art department after we filmed. So I would assume, I've never had the conversation. In fact, I'll have to ask Doug Drexler about it. In looking at our character, they could have, taken that concept and decided to put it into their designs.
We've spoken to Rick Sternbach, and that is the reason for the pylons going out.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
So you're the reason behind Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
You're the reason behind Deep Space Nine looking like it does with those big arches. So
you invented the culture by Marco Amos. I mean, how does that feel?
I wish I'd known that. I would have put it in the book. I think it's neat. It means, the Star Trek is, we're going to be long gone, and they're still going to be showing those episodes to people. Just being part of that for 18 years. I love going to the Trekkie conventions. I just love the interaction with the fans. And the thing is, you walk out on the stage and there's 5,000 people sitting there cheering. And it's like, you want to give them the best show. And I even encourage people to come up and say hello, because a lot of people don't want to bother you. They don't want to, and I don't. I even go up to people. Every time I find a Dax character with bad spots, I go up and talk to them. And I was rejected once by somebody says, it was a foreign girl was going, no, these are right. And I'm going, okay, I only did it 550 times on Terry, but I guess you're right,
And I guess since we've gone to all this detail, it's worth asking, like we did for all the ship designers, what is your favourite and least favourite part of the Cardassian makeup? And then we'll close out.
Favorite? I think my favorite thing is the entire look. Once you get it all together, that's
spoonhead part. The spoonhead part.
Because my favorite part's the spoon.
There you go.
See? I held that around for a long time. I can't say there was not a favorite thing. My least favorite thing would be,
if you had to pick,
in the painting, that if somebody didn't paint it properly, because you had to take, and once you had all the gray makeup in, you had to take your airbrush and literally go into all the little details and make them up, put shadows in them. And if somebody cut it short or something, but that's why I was hanging around all the time, to be able to say, wait a minute, it needs a little bit more paint on it. If I saw an edge that was really bad, send it back and have them fix an edge or something. But I checked everybody out before they ever went to the set. So that I did, as opposed to maybe not applying every makeup, but every makeup was checked before going on camera.
And I guess it is worth asking, if you go back, we also asked this to other designers, say you doubled the budget, is there anything you would tweak, change, update, add the extra level of money, the detail that money can bring? Is there anything you'd have done if you had the chance?
With the Cardassians, no. I think maybe some of the pieces would work in silicone, but the problem with that is silicone is great if you leave it so it has a luminosity to it. But with the Cardassians, they were totally gray, face and hands and everything. So it's silly to make it out of silicone if you're going to totally put an opaque paint on it, But no, it's like you move on. Give me another character and we'll see. But with the Cardassians, I think it's like with the Klingons. I think I was happy with every Klingon.
All right, well, thank you, Michael. I think we learned a lot about the Cardassians and a lot about makeup today, but we have a lot more discussions with you in the future. So thank you for joining us again today.
My pleasure.
And of course, if you want to support this show and see more with Michael and us just learning about everything, you got to click that like button, that subscribe to the channel, notifications, make sure just that subscribed, share this video to anywhere you think Trek fans will love it, because they will. Share.
And if you want to support the show, please check out our Patreon. You can help us out on a monthly basis, or go over to trekyards.com, click the donate button, send us a one-time donation, and it'll really help us keep the show going for you guys. So until next time, guys, and more talks with designers of ships and awesome makeup people like Michael Westmore, we will see you then. I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins.
I'm Mike Westmore.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.